But I was wrong about that, okay? So I want to correct the record. I was, in fact, wrong about that.
God damn it, I'm tired of it.
Cenk and Anna of the Young Turks continually misinform their viewers. Their journalistic malpractice is much worse than you may think, as I'll show later in this video.
There are multiple videos from that night. The first video was Kyle Rittenhouse literally chasing a protester into a parking lot, but I was wrong about that. Now, what really mattered to me was how all of this unfolded. What was the thing that sparked it? What started all of it? And initially, I was under the assumption that Rittenhouse was the person who was chasing after Joseph Rosenbaum, that's how it had started. But I was wrong about that, okay? So I want to correct the record. I was, in fact, wrong about that. And to show you the evidence, to reinforce that I was wrong about that, I want to go to this video that shows how everything really started.
She could have shown her own video from last year. Apparently, she didn't bother to check to see what she had actually initially reported. Even in her admission of being wrong, after being called out on it, she still doesn't get everything correct. She had correctly reported that it was Rittenhouse who was being chased. Here she is in her video published August 27th, 2020, reading a New York Times article published the same day.
But there are some more details that I've looked into myself, that I've fact-checked myself, that I'm gonna get into right now, just to give you guys the details of that timeline. He eventually leaves the dealership and is barred by police from returning. 6 minutes later, footage shows Rittenhouse being chased by a unknown group of people into the parking lot of another dealership several blocks away. We don't know right now what led to those individuals chasing him down. We don't know what he did to lead to that. We don't know what kind of altercation ensued. But what we do know is after the fact, the first victim was shot in the head. Okay, while Rittenhouse was being pursued by the group, an unknown gunman fires in the air, though it's unclear why. Rittenhouse turns toward the sound of gunfire as another pursuer lunges toward him from the same direction. Rittenhouse then fires 4 times and appears to shoot the man in the head. So that was the first shooting.
So her stating that she initially was under the assumption that the situation was the other way around doesn't make sense. She had correctly reported that it was Rittenhouse who was being pursued and lunged at by a pursuer. Some speculate that she was outright lying. It's more likely she's so invested in a narrative that she cannot be objective, so she misremembers how she originally reported it. She may be incompetent, she may be dishonest, who knows? But the bottom line is she and Cenk are horrible journalists.
We're all seeing the evidence. We're all seeing everything play out, right?
So finally, she admits that the evidence overwhelmingly supports Rittenhouse's claim to self-defense.
The evidence, in my opinion, is so overwhelmingly in support of the self-defense argument that Kyle Rittenhouse is making. Okay, again, let me just be clear. The video evidence provided is pretty damning, and not damning toward Kyle Rittenhouse. What I'm specifically referring to is there's enough there, in my opinion, that Kyle Rittenhouse can reasonably believe that his life was in danger and that he used his weapon in self-defense. That's the argument that I'm trying to make. What matters is what we see on camera. And for me, again, homicide, the homicide charge that he's facing, the burden of proof is very high, right? So you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he fired his weapon with the intent, right? With this intent of murdering people. And he's arguing, no, my life was in danger. I was faced with an imminent threat, both with Rosenbaum and also with Huber and Grosskreutz. Okay, those were that was when he was on his back, and you have his head being kicked in. You also have someone hitting him with the skateboard. Those videos, I think, show that he reasonably believed he was under threat, that he was facing an imminent risk or imminent threat, and as a result, fired his weapon. The prosecution has done an awful job in making its case. But in terms of him standing trial, in terms of the charges he's facing, the only charge that I really see him being convicted of, because he admitted it himself on the stand, was being in possession of a weapon that he could not legally be in possession of. And some people on the left think that I'm being too generous to Rittenhouse. The evidence is the evidence, guys. I can't change the facts of the story.
She can't? She's been changing the facts of this story for more than a year and feeding those false facts to her viewers for months on end.
Kenosha shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse, he murdered 2 people, by the way.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy who's deeply racist, went with weapons to a Black Lives Matter protest looking to get in trouble. He did. He murdered a couple of people.
Given how poorly she's reported this story, going as far as to labeling Rittenhouse a murderer, she should have focused on the fact that she's now changed her opinion instead of just mentioning it within a video about Rittenhouse crying. Young Turks viewers would have to watch more than 8 minutes into the video to find out that Anna has changed her opinion. That major change shouldn't be buried within a video with a title that has nothing to do with it. Even after these two admit that Kyle Rittenhouse has a very strong case for self-defense, they're still playing games and misleading their viewers.
No, it just means, in reality, that they didn't have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. It doesn't mean that you did something morally correct. Kyle Rittenhouse still went there with terrible intent, with heavily armed, and wound up killing 2 people that would be alive today if it wasn't for goddamn Rittenhouse.
Cenk does not have proof for these stupid claims. And actually, if it wasn't for Rosenbaum's actions, everyone would be alive. Rosenbaum was so out of control, people had to hold him back. Rosenbaum would have likely attacked someone else if Kyle wasn't there.
Can we at least call the people who were killed victims? No, you cannot call them victims. You must call them arsonists or looters or rioters.
That's another lie from Cenk. The judge did not say you must call them arsonists or looters or rioters.
There's no evidence indicating any of them were arsonists, looters, or rioters.
Rosenbaum shows up in videos just after 11 p.m. He is shouting at armed civilians at a gas station and helping people push a flaming dumpster.
Did you see what happened to that dumpster?
I did.
What?
It was, the fire was put out by a fire extinguisher.
And when the fire in the dumpster was put out by the fire extinguisher, was there any reaction from the people who were starting the fire?
Yes, a very angry reaction.
Okay. Did you recognize or notice anybody's specific reaction at that time?
I did, Mr. Rosenbaum.
Okay. Describe that, please.
He was very agitated. He was yelling, "Fuck the police," over and over and over. "I'm not afraid to go back to jail," and "shoot me N-word, shoot me N-word."
But he was using the whole word.
Correct.
At a Black Lives Matter rally?
Correct.
And he had to be held back from attacking people. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement.
Overall, the judge might as well hide Rittenhouse under his robe. Like, are you okay? Are you okay, my beloved right-wing son? Don't worry, I'll let you kill anybody. Another guy who was killed had a plastic bag. So, okay, you could say, oh yeah, anybody with a plastic bag should be murdered if they throw it at me. You're right-wingers, you probably do believe that. Anything that's a mild threat, that's an excuse to murder people, you probably love. That's why Rittenhouse is your hero.
In the moments before he was killed, Rosenbaum had chased after Rittenhouse, and both the prosecutor and defense worked to drill down if that constituted a threat.
He continues to advance until he makes a lunge for the weapon, correct?
Yes, it appeared that he was lunging for the front portion of the weapon.
Your perception was that evening, as you watched it, he was going for the barrel of the gun.
Correct.
And the detective followed up on that to pin that down, and you stated, but he was certainly trying to grab the barrel of the gun. You were certain of that?
I think it was very clear to me that he was reaching specifically for the weapon, and because that's where his hands went.
Okay. You were describing to the detective what you observed Mr. Rosenbaum doing, correct?
Correct.
Could you describe that or show us?
It's probably easier to show, to be honest.
Just
like he was in a low position. He's in a low position running, and then when he went for the front portion of the rifle, his lunged forward like that.
Okay. I mean, you have no idea what Mr. Rosenbaum was ever thinking at any point in his life. You have never been inside his head. You never met him before. You don't know.
I've never exchanged words with him, if that's what your question is.
So your interpretation of what he was trying to do or what he was intending to do or anything along those lines is complete guesswork, isn't it?
Well, he said, fuck you, and then he reached for the weapon.
Please subscribe because I'll make more videos about this. There's so much that these two get wrong. Not only about this case, but nearly every case that they mention, they're wrong about.